believe their stories internally, subconsciously, and all of the above, turn our lights off. And then it expresses itself in our reality as such, because we don't even know that we've had lights. We've been kept in the dark for so long with an intention. So this is why I was saying the intention of the Western reality. You have the primary functional love that really has no emotional attachments to it. It's like a mother is going to do whatever they're going to do for their child. And taking that even further, other people in the family can inhabit that sort of love, that motherly type of primal love, to where they will do the same thing. It will be a without question type of love, to where the experience doesn't even matter anymore. This is where the system gets into the individual and takes that primal love and installs it into the system itself and says, we have that type of love for you. It's unquestionable, and it's through evolution that we have attained this love for you. And here's how it's expressed: capitalism, democracy, Western world, evolution, technology, food stamps, dams, water, all the Western stuff. And, and the people are proud of it. They defend it. They're like, yeah, you're on a computer now, you're doing this. It's the repetition of protecting the slave master mentality. Like I said, they are vested in this. The relationship between primary and secondary love. At this time, New Age love and all that shit ain't even in here yet. That's in some old, this is what love tastes like type of TV dinner, microwave TV dinner type of love. So you have the primary love that has been taken over by the system and redefined. It's been redefined by the system because we gave that love to the system. So when it redefined that love, it destroyed the other love, which is the awareness of the rest of the loves that are out there. One of the main reasons why there's a primary love is to allow the secondary love to exist. You can see that with the mother and the child. So what is the secondary love? The secondary love is all of the experiential love that exists. That includes the love of the original love and the experience itself, which all gets removed when the westernized definition of love becomes the primary definition of love, which is devoid of the secondary love and has a bastardized version of the primary love. When that love gets dramatized, when any of the love gets dramatized, then that's when the overall experiential love just starts to dissipate. Secondary love has been redefined, reprogrammed along with primary love and shrunk into this one thing called love. Just this one commercial Happy Meal box called love. That's what it is, a Happy Meal called love. And we forgot the origin stories of love. So we have a romanticized definition of love and a romanticized definition of one side of love. At best, a 50% of each 50% of love, a 50% of primary and a 50% of secondary love. And they don't really exist because it's just been balled into one love. That's only existing if you've gone into questioning this whole story in the first place. So when you glorify the secondary love, what you do is you create the illusory universe. The responsibility still remains, which is the further defining of this realm and this relationship and these responsibilities that go into redefining and redefining and analyzing the redefinitions of love that have been conditioned, and the whole destroying the happy mealing of love that has destroyed our relationship with nature, each other. Like I said, when I'm not talking about love in like on its own. I'm talking about the definition, every definition that you affiliate with love. You can see the complexities get less complex when you go from motherly love to love of a stranger or something like that. So you can just imagine the differences between the primary love and the secondary love. We're talking about the irrefutable relationship loving relationship that the indigenous people as a whole have and had with nature, and the soul-filled relationships that this Western world is largely ignorant to in many different ways. Untapped potential becomes a weight on the experience. It becomes very similar to an individual going deeper into their egoic versions of themselves. That is a fake or a cheap self-love, a made-up version of love that is based upon another world and another individual, actually, because you have the individual who interacts, like the straw man of the individual, like straw man love. That could be a good example or a good title for the modern love. Straw man love is what? The scarecrow love. It's fear. A lot of the love that we call love today is a love out of fear, like the fear that comes within your primal, like your survival relationships. Artificial love, once it generates itself in a non-artificial reality, it has to generate a lot of things around it to protect itself from being revealed. Like a parasite, like I said, like a cancer, once it's revealed for what it is, it can be removed. The cells around it will start to heal themselves, and then the cancer will be ineffective. It will have nothing else to feed off of. You removed its food source. Having to do something with that weight or that energy. And what systems and people do when they are surrounded by those illusory energies is they have to create other versions of themselves, so other straw men. So a straw man now has to, it's kind of like a lie, like you have to go, like a straw man has to create another straw man to protect its original straw man. This is what happens when you start redefining love into oblivion, to where love is used for tissue paper or something, soda pop. That's that kind of way down the line. It's not even love anymore. It's just a candy-coated version of something that used to be called love. The subconscious obesity of society. This realm that is eating subconscious Happy Meals every single day and calling it love. I'm loving it. Love, okay, from Happy Meals to married people and babies and stuff like that. Happy Meals. It's the love that you have with beyond this experience that is incomprehensible to the people who can't even interpret what that love is, who are on that on single digit ass love. That single digit love is cheap and sold like a salesman would guarantee something, like guarantee some brake pads. It comes with 100% money back guarantee, but you're using money, for something that's cashless. Worst case scenario, primary love can be overtaken by secondary love, just as it's possible to have an illusion overtake reality. And it's very easy to see too. Western society is some pimp magic. Just go back to sleep, baby. We got this. We got this. We're gonna set freedom around the world. We got this. We're gonna save the whole world. Pimps of the USA. Defeating terrorism left and right. So you have individuals who are having relationships and then creating openings for other souls to come through these relationships, not even consciously connected to the natural love, like the primary love. It's not even there. It's kind of like people that think that the system is not the problem. The system can still exist. It just needs to be fixed. When in fact, the system feeds off of the problems. So people who are unaware of that are unaware of the primary love that other people have been existing as. This is a frequency that really does differentiate you from individuals from different realms. And what the New Age does is it says that since there's only a single thing called love and it's everything, then you can blend the two. Like you can have an unconscious individual, whatever the hell that is, be with the most conscious individual, and then everything would be okay. That's cheap love. That's a cheap, so, but that's, as long as you have that middle ground, that middle step, it allows for the justification of other nonsense. And nonsense, I mean by lack of definitions, which is just nonsense. It's just made up theories and stuff like that. Pimp game taking over the world. Primary love destroyed and replaced with a bastardized version of the secondary love, which is an allusion to the umpteenth degree, to the separation, so on and so forth. A realm within a realm. So this is when a new love can be introduced. A love that is a now new primary love. So since primary and secondary love was removed by the pimp game, you have to install a new version of love. Pimps install the pimp game love in there, and then you have a new primary love, and then that takes over. And then since there is no true definition of love, every other usage of that terminology called love doesn't really matter. You can just put it on anything, like sprinkle that shit on everything, like it is today. So that's how love was destroyed by Western minds. But since the non-Western minds are still alive and well, love really wasn't scathed at all. It's just fine. And it's time to go beyond that. After love comes responsibility. Because a deeper love means a deeper responsibility to love, which is why secondary is separate from primary, because you have a deeper responsibility in the primary love, which is what our people were expressing in this reality, which is why they had to be stomped out by those who seek to deify themselves and create another version of love that is only centered on them. This is what the mainstream media is. This is what Western society is. You can have all the information in the world that's going to awaken, enlighten, and free people's minds and all that other bullshit. But if they hadn't put in the work, there ain't no answer key that's going to fix anything or do anything to address the deeper issues. You're just going to have a bunch of dumbass people aware of some new information, but they don't got nothing to do with that information. This is the thing that people are not really realizing. What's going to happen years down the line when people are privy to all this information, but they're still dumb as a box of rocks in the second coat of paint? They don't know what the fuck to do with any of this shit. So they're going to have you're going to have another critical mass, like overflow of people, kind of like the internet is today. People are so bombarded by all this technology and all this stuff that they're going to have some serious side effects. They're already having serious side effects right now. So this is going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect the children. It's going to affect the evolution of the mind of the child into the adolescent, to the adult. It's already happening. And this is all on purpose is what I'm saying. And a lot of this is allowed to happen because we still allow these individuals like Eckhart Tolle, who are sponsored by people like Oprah, when Oprah is sponsored by the government. Why is Eckhart Tolle out there? Because he's supposed to be the talking head or one of the big mouthpieces for the idea of the new age interpretations of reality. Outside of the old, we evolved from monkeys, genetics, now it's going from that to we're all about consciousness. And this is what I said, this whole forgiveness thing, that whole world of they can never do any wrong. Everything is oops. They just oops. They never have any accountability with anything. Like when they put that AIDS virus, and then when Bear sent that AIDS virus to another country and infected like 1 million something people, 1.5 million people, kids with the AIDS virus or whatever. They just oopsed that shit up. Like when they go into all these wars on that, oops, we accidentally thought we were supposed to go to war with them, but now we're in a war right now, so we don't know what to do. Oops. That's how they're playing this shit. That is white people's character. So-called white people play that character. They're the super nice people of the universe, and they can do no wrong. So now that they have put that atmosphere of themselves out there in society, now they can have their so-called leaders tell the next agenda. And the leaders might not even know it because they just been, farting along in their little lifetime, doing whatever they doing and coming to their own realizations just like anybody else. But they just happen to get like all this promotion from the system. And like, ooh, I'm just so good at manifesting my reality that I just got Oprah to come and sponsor all my shit. Then now they're all happy because the law of attraction. You see this shit? And since they are sponsored by people who got the okay by the sponsorers, like the you got to get the sign off from the man. Oprah is the man. So if she's given the sign off like Beyonce, but in a different style. And her style is dealing with the consciousness of the people, like specifically women or the feminine. This is the control factor. So like Joe Rogan and people like that go on, like Graham Hancock and David Icke, Russell Brand, all the people that go on to the Joe Rogan experience, those are the people who are being put out there in society to sell to people this atmosphere of what a conscious man is supposed to be like. And this is happening with people like Eckhart Tolle and Tony Robbins and Russell Brand. These are what conscious men are supposed to be like. So conscious brown and black men around the world should strive to be like them. Why? Because people like Eckhart Tolle are the ones who know the divine purpose of the fucking universe. That's why. Because these people can just sit up there and, just wax rhapsodic just forever about what this is. The point is not them being able to do it. The point the point is that how they are received by society based on like given these topics that relate to the very nature of this whole experience. White people have put a sorcery on the masses of people that makes them think that they are the authority of thought in this entire realm, the whole fucking universe. So how successful would Eckhart Tolle be if he's just like a regular dude, like a Mexican dude or something like that? They would, you would have white people like, oh, I'm not gonna listen to no dirty fucking Mexican. Like, so if he's a white dude, he's a universal guy. If it's a white person, it's a universal consciousness. That's what they want to put out there. White people are the amalgamation of all humans, and they are the evolutionary peak of this human experience. And people like Eckhart Tolle are a good example of what a divine man balanced with their divine masculine and feminine is. They can explain what the divine purposes of the universe are once they become one with themselves and conquer their ego, all the bullshit that gets put out in the New Age community. Once they check off the list of everything that the New Age teachers have said to do in their reality, then they can become conscious. And then they can tell the rest of the world what the divine purpose of the universe is. Now, I'm not saying people don't like sit around and think about it, and you can listen to what he's saying. Like I said, what he says, basically what he boils up the divine purpose of the universe is to have the form and the formlessness, a consciousness experience reality through the form and the formlessness. So it's just a flowery way of saying that you are both physical and non-physical. Is that the purpose, or is that just an analysis of this experience? It's just a fucking analysis. It has no purpose in it. But since he says it with the divine purposes. I just talked for an hour and a half about how beautiful consciousness is, and now it's just about me boiling it down to what it is. Okay, what is the divine purpose of the universe? Let me pause for extra long and stare deadly into the audience. I'm just gonna look into the audience, staring at them quietly like I'm thinking about something super deep, but I just said this shit 2 seconds ago. Okay, this is the divine purpose of the universe. The divine purpose of the universe is is for the consciousness of this experience to experience this realm through the form and the formlessness. That's it. That's it. That's what it all is. Just go back to sleep. Have a nice day. So the point is with this is how many other people who are not Eckhart Tolle who actually speak about the purposes of this universe, how many ancestors do we have that spoke about the purpose of the universe? How many teachers today that are still alive? Bobby Hemmett, that speaks about the purpose of the universe, that are not even acknowledged as having any kind of, they can't even be introduced into this circle of people, because this circle of people would be instantaneously exposed for their bullshit. What the fuck do you think Eckhart Tolle would be saying if he was sitting next to Bobby Hemmett? The dude would fucking short circuit, because Bobby would push him as hard as he could go each and every time. The thing is, it's not really about the comparison like that. The point is, what is being promoted? Like, what kind of atmosphere is being promoted and what kind of consciousness is being suppressed? You definitely have a consciousness or a type of person that is being promoted in society on every scale, especially the New Age community. And then once you have that, once you have put all these people on a pedestal, you don't really have to talk shit about anybody else. You just have to ignore them and act like their information doesn't exist, because all the information that you have around your topics is what really matters. So as long as they keep playing the story of the divine purpose of the universe through the eyes of people like Eckhart Tolle, Sadhguru, Mooji, and the New Age community, then you will always have this misinformed, disinformed, and uninformed. Like these people who are not only uninformed, but they're ill-equipped. They don't have any place to put in the information that exists outside of the community that they got the information from. So they're pretty much like slaves to the New Age thought process. So this is why I left the New Age thought process, because this is how I felt when I was in there. I was like, I have to abide by all this shit. I gotta believe everything that these motherfuckers are talking about. Like, none of this is sitting in anywhere true. Like, all of this is based upon another version of theory. Yeah, a lot of the consciousness talk that Eckhart Tolle throws out there, and even Infinite Waters, like that stuff, it makes sense, obviously. But what I'm saying is that when you have all these things that make sense, and they're not, that same kind of concept of analyzing is not put on the system that created a lot of these problems, then you're one-sided. And if it's one-sided, then you're in like a theory-based or a belief system consciousness. You're not in it to really go to the depths of what's going on. You're only in it for yourself. You're only in it to feel better. See, this is what the New Age community is about. People go into the New Age community trying to feel better, trying to be better for themselves. And once they get that, they stop. And that's a benefit for the system. New Agers going in, like the smartest, most conscious people who are equipped to do something about this, to hold the system accountable for the system, for what it's been doing and what it's trying to do for the future. They get into the New Age community and they just suppress them. They just like Catholicism puts out guilt. Well, the New Age puts out passive aggressive behavior and then passivity. And it puts out this, and I'm glad I remembered this, it puts out this idea of romanticism. So when people say the word love, they're not saying love. They're talking about romanticism. And Bobby Hemmett talks about this a fair amount. And I can't remember which videos it was. It's one of the latest Bobby Hemmett videos that I re-uploaded, where he was talking about, I think somebody asked him about saving your people. I think that's what it was. Like, what can we do to save our people? And that's romanticism. So how does romanticism exist in the white community? Well, you got the secret space program, you got the sphere being alliance, David Wilcock, the ancient aliens, you got the bad aliens and the good aliens, and You got the good guys and the bad guys in the government agency. You got love will save the day. Love wins. Black Lives Matter. This is all romanticism. Is Black Lives Matter going to the depths of the institution of racism, white supremacy? No. It's about romanticizing a thought process, like putting some very deep issues into a very shallow box of interpretation and selling that box of interpretation to a bunch of very shallow people who have been maintained to be shallow for their entire lives on purpose, so they do not address the system. So another part of, I completely forgot this would be like the white sorcery part too, but the biggest part of white sorcery or this new age sorcery is basically the consciousness of romanticism. So the love, the twin flame talk, like, so everything in the new age community about like dealing with relationships. They tie in the love, they talk in the consciousness, the vibration, the frequency, oh, this and this, all this, and this adds up to love, right? Oh, no. That adds up to you romanticizing a storyline that feels good, that's supposed to affect you in a certain way based upon who and what you are in this moment in time. Because you want to focus. That's your experience. You want to have that love. It's all about love. It's about this and that. Okay, you're going to have a love experience. Well, what's the definition of love to a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old? You see what I'm saying? Like, it evolves. It changes every time. So there is no real definition of love. But in society, there is a whole bunch of definitions of love. And since there is no real definition of love, and that thing that's promoted through society, it's called love, we have to stop calling it love. When they use love to sell burgers and technology and Swiffer brooms and Roombas and shit, like when they use love to sell all that, they're not saying that, they only use that term love to make you pay attention, to make you think that it's for you. But when you start looking at anything that the system uses and they call it love from the perspective of romanticizing you, like it's a romanticism, it's a fairy tale, it's a storyline. Love has been turned into this enlightenment, awakening tool, mechanism designed to dumb down, limit people, and suppress people's everything. Because everything is in love. Your revolution is in love. Like, why would you revolt if you still love the system? There's nothing to revolt against. Because there's so much fucking love out there. Everything is tied into this romanticizing of the world. So God has been romanticized. Everything, God in the New Age community, romanticism. See, so-called black and brown people around the world who go through all this shit and come to their realizations, our realizations are not going to be the same realizations as people like Russell Brand and Eckhart Tolle. We're going to come to some much deeper realizations when we go through the same shit, if not more, usually more, than people like Eckhart Tolle and Russell Brand. But the system doesn't want that depth. That depth will go too far. That depth will uproot the system itself. So instead of going to the depths of the people who are unveiling this true depths, the true depths of consciousness that go beyond the system itself, they stay shallow to the shallow people who've only gone so far, like Eckhart Tolle, who've only gone so far. But in your eyes, you think they've gone further than you can ever achieve, even in this lifetime, because that's how they've been marketed. They've been marketed as this highly evolved spiritual being, but that doesn't mean that they are a highly evolved spiritual. They've just been marketed that way. What if a higher evolved spiritual being isn't only talking about, consciousness? Or what if the highly evolved spiritual being is also talking about the very nature of the systems itself, the institutions that had led up to the problems themselves? See, people are not talking about that. If you ask me, that's a more higher consciousness approach to what's going on. Not to just throw it to the side and say, oh, that's lower ego thinking. That's what they do, these prescription drug thought processes. Since they don't have anywhere to put a lot of this information or what's going on, they got to just say, oh yeah, well, that a label has to be placed on it. So Romanticism is the main sorcery in the New Age community, and how they install that Romanticism into the New Age thought process is by grabbing these gurus who only go as far as the tier above the pillars of the Western consciousness. They're in the space of fixing the system. This is what the New Age is about. Fix the system. So this is why the system is promoting the New Age, because when they promote the idea of you fixing yourself, then they can promote the idea of us fixing the system. If they can shrink down your consciousness to think that it can be put into technology, if they can shrink your soul into a hard drive, you have given them permission. Like, you have signed a contract through your consciousness to own your soul in some form or fashion, because you think they have the capacity to do that with a soul. And when that happens, that changes your relationship with God. You now think that they are godly, at least, because they can manipulate souls. And this is the intention with technology in the system of racism, white supremacy, with people following these belief systems over and over and over again, year after year. Because you have to not only follow them as kings to run, your governments, your state governments, your city governments, but you have to rely on them as gods through intellect. And this is why technology is such a big thing in the world. And how they do that is by victimizing the world. Again, okay, the world is being destroyed. Oh yeah, the global warming is happening and we're doing it. They throw that shit out there all the time, and then they say we. Like, we, what the fuck you mean we? The same thing like white people, so-called white people, do that in the truther community. We need to stick together. We've done this. We did all this shit as humans. No, there is a certain group of people that have went around colonizing the whole fucking world that's still not being acknowledged as having a psychological something going on in their head that is very different from everybody else. So before anybody says anything about that existing, the system has to generate these cheap definitions of who and what we are and include the behavior of the colonizers as part of who and what we are. So that's where they have Joe Rogan say shit like, oh, we're these monkey-minded, beastly creatures evolved from monkeys that just want to fuck everything and eat everything and control everything and dominate everything. So they give you the definitions of them, and then that makes you act like them, or at least subconsciously want to be like them, which and sooner or later you will eventually be like them. So how this happens is with this, it's these cheap definitions of who and what we are. And we just follow these belief systems with these cheap definitions like of love. Like, just follow the New Age because love. Well, what is love? Actually, what is it as a thing? See, they want to define love because if you define your love will bring about a relationship with that which you do love that will expose your deepest love will expose their synthetic shallow love that is being promoted to the masses. So they have to constantly tell you what love is about and all this other stuff. Oh yeah, love is this, love is that, love is blind, and actually over time shrink down the definition to nothing. So now you have these love at first swipe people. It needs to be cheap. It needs to be synthetic. So they just say, just love. Just as soon as you guys are loving, what's love? Oh, it's just a feeling in your stomach and you like this person really much. Because you see all these things that it's just, when you really boil it down, love is based upon the individual's definition. It's not based upon anything that is like very deep and transcendent and all this other stuff. I mean, you could go there, but really it's going to be based upon how you are defining a whole bunch of other things. And what I'm saying is, why I keep referring to that is because there's a whole bunch of agendas that are linked up within this love stuff, the same way that there is a whole bunch of agendas that are linked up with this humanity thing, the New World Order. So humanity, the term humanity is like the main course of this new world meal that they're going to feed to everybody that's, you know, filled with poison. And the main ingredient in that main course is love. So the main entree is whatever it is humanity, but what's in that is how it's made is with love. Like they say, oh yeah, we just love everything. Well, after they conquered and destroyed everything. Every moment of every day, you are seeing the system of racism, white supremacy running rampant through the people's minds and consciousness. If you start addressing the entire system, you will start addressing the individuals who benefit from that system. So this is in the New Age community, they do the same thing. Only thing you need to focus on is love. What's their examples of love? Meditation and feeling compassion for the masses, the other than self, like all this shit. So people like, or these channels like London Real, Russell Brand, David Icke, they are specialists in showing you only the little perspectives, the one perspectives to distract you from the larger perspectives. So this guy like Bruce Lipton will say, wake up and be in love. The behaviors that are going on in society right now, the fucked up relationships between men and women in society, in Western society right now, is between the way white men treat white women. And then other kinds of men around the world learned that behavior because it's part of the Western thought process, and now they have done it. But the behavior, the relationships that so-called white people have in their relationships are not the same. The problems that people have, yes, generally like the relationship problems and issues that people have, it's all the same across the board pretty much. But as far as the damages that are inside of the individuals, so-called white people, that would make them try to colonize the world, the same damages that would make them colonize the world are damaging their relationships with the women. So the same things happen. There's something going on with the women too, and they don't want you to look at that shit too, because if you start looking at the same way, if you start looking at what's right with you, you'll start looking at what's wrong with, you know, the people that are, you know, fucking everything up. So you have to be convinced that something's wrong with you constantly. So this is why the mainstream local news demonizes the black and brown peoples around the world, because there's not anything wrong with you to the point that needs to be, you know, having this savior white man out there, you know, constantly putting this Western world in your face as the saving grace. But you need to be convinced that you are a toxic man, and society needs to fix that. You need to evolve. So you need to evolve from a monkey into a higher consciousness. Masculinity on its own has nothing to do with toxic masculinity, but you'd be surprised when you see that shit on television. What's happening in society right now is that the toxic man, or the toxic masculinity consciousness, is setting up a scenario where the so-called white consciousness can now give you the definition of what masculinity and femininity actually is, because they gave you the definition of what it's not. That's how this system works. When they give you a fucked up version of a woman and a fucked up version of a man, and then they can tell you, and they've televised all this stuff. That's how they tell you what it is. Then they can tell you what a real man is and what a real woman is. So this is why they have people like Joe Rogan on podcasts. Causes of cancer, DMT, The Matrix, hopelessness, living a full life, how to raise your children, death wisdom, facing your own death, death-phobic society, everything has to end, the meaning of death, potential is tyranny, life is rooted in death, fiction versus reality. See, these people have the answers for everything except themselves. They got the answers for everything that's going on in the world except for how they've been involved on the massive scale. See, this is a celebration of the Western micro, in hopes of generating a momentum towards a new age macro. That's what this boils down to. Emphasizing everything about the micro to usher in this idea of a new macro. And since you don't know what the micro or the macro is outside of a so-called white consciousness telling you what's going on, you will accept whatever they tell you. So since they're giving you psychedelic drugs and they're giving you, you know, all this other shit, And you'll be like, oh, okay, I'll listen to them. That sounds, all it has to do is make sense. And for a while, at some point, heliocentrism was making sense, right? Well, now here we go with this consciousness shit. Obviously, it makes sense, but it's only, a crumb of the whole story.